I'd like to invite our first speaker, Mr. T.K. Ramesh. He is Managing Director of Micromatic Machine Tools Private Limited, the marketing company of the 2,500 crore ACE Micromatic Group, the largest machine tool groups in India. The group manufactures CNC lathes, machining centers, CNC grinders, machine tools, automation subsystems like Tourette's and ATC's productivity monitoring solutions, and market their products globally with offices in Europe, China, and a wide dealer network. Today, Mr. T.K. Ramesh will give us a brief view on an overview of the automotive industry and current status in numbers, interlinkages with the machine tools industries, examples and close interaction needed for localization and competitiveness. For delegates, let's welcome Mr. T.K. Ramesh.
Thank you very much, Krishna. Good afternoon to my brief opening this afternoon is kind of walk you through what has been happening in the automotive from a historic perspective, one from India, and second, also to set a stage about what is the situation from a global perspective. I have been in this business for close to 4 decades now. So I don't know how many of you perhaps would be much younger than me. So, we went through 4 kind of distinctive phases from an Indian automotive industries. The pre-80s, where it was closed markets, very, very few players. I don't know those of you who remember the olden days of, Bajaj and Lambretta and Fiats and Ambassadors. It was a seller's market. You went, paid your money, waited for I believe Bajaj had a waiting list of 11 years, 12 years and things like that. And when you went to pick up your vehicle, they said, look, we have yellow color, but I had booked for blue. Then they say, fine, you have to wait for another 6 years. So from days of seller's market, it moved. We had the mid 80s to the mid 90s when the sector started opening up. And one significant event that happened there was, the arrival of the Suzuki collaboration with Maruti, of course the Suzuki collaboration with TVS when motorcycles came in. We also had the Yamaha Escorts in those days, and of course the Hero Honda, which is now separately Honda and Hero. So this was the beginning of those days, and what really happened at that point in time was gradual opening up was happening, and the importance of a supply chain management development center or development need was felt. Then we moved to the next phase, which is from the mid 80s to 2015, where for a change the sector got delicensed. Manufacturing was licensed. So those of you who believe, that means if a company had, for example, Telco, which used to be making trucks and commercial vehicles in those days, the government would have to permit it to produce a certain number, whatever, 40,000, 50,000 per year. And if you made more than that, you were penalized. I mean, these are some things that you can't even imagine today, but that's how it was. So the sector got delicensed, and there was a gradual but a steady shift of OEMs to India. Today, most of the global OEMs are present in India, and the import policy changed. And of course, before the GST that we are talking of today, was a significant change to VAT, which was value-added taxes. Of course, it was still state and center, but it moved to VAT. And then came the 4th phase, which is for the last 5 years, which is 2015 onwards, where the government of India, looking at the rate at which the automotive sector grew, the large market that was available in India, there was a policy change like what we are talking today of Atmanirbhar Bharat and manufacture in India and things like that. In 2015, the automotive mission plan was stayed, and this completely changed the face of automobiles and automotive manufacturing from 2015 onwards. A very brief overview, Krishna has already spoken about us. We make machine tools, and we are very, very closely related to the automotive sector. We were at one point in time, all our supplies, 90% used to go to the automotive industry, largely to the supply chain, the component manufacturing companies. We have over 60,000 installations of machines. 25% of them today are linked with IIoT, so which is again a very significant change that's happening in the supply chain. And while we work very, very closely from a machine tool and component manufacturing. This again is going through a big change with the advent of change in technology, the EV that is coming in, and with the engine going to be gradually being replaced under different segments. But then the hope and the indications are that some sectors will rapidly become electric, but there is still going to be a sector that will still be dependent on the fossil fuels and which will continue. So we are about 6,000 people, 60,000 machines. We are in turning, milling, grinding. We have a small footprint outside of India, again, where we supply to the automotive industry. So it is with this, the purpose of my talking to you about all this is to tell you the background with which we come from. So today, I'd like to kind of give a brief view about the India advantage. What is it that we have as an India advantage? One, we have a growing market. Why? Demographics. If you really look at the global population, India, China, and it's the East where there are people, and it's only where there are people, there's going to be goods, services, supply, people movement. So there is going to be need for transportation, and automotive is an extremely important part of it. So it's a growing market. There's a lot of tech opportunities in supply chain. There are things like shared mobility. There's the EV that is coming up. So there's a lot of tech opportunities. And in the last 2 decades, from an electronics perspective and specifically from a software perspective, there's a lot that has been going well for India. We had the, right from the start of the Y2K days, software and development of embedded technologies is a big thing that's happening in India. There's policy support, the mission plan I spoke to you. Now we are talking about the environment. We're also talking about scrappage. So that means new demands, new markets, replacements. And of course, if you look at it historically, there's a lot of investments happening because foreign direct investment, the past, present, and is expected also to the future because of the large talent pool of good demographics, young people, software, technology, and development in electronics. If policy plays the right role, investments are going to be coming here. And let us not forget that we have the markets here. So what do they actually mean in terms of the automotive industry? The industry today contributes about 7% of the GDP, and it's expected to grow to about 15% by 2030. Today, the industry as a whole employs 37 million people, and by 2030, it's expected that it's going to add another 65 million jobs. There are a lot of us in colleges. There's an emerging workforce. So it's extremely important that this could be a good consumer of good technology for which it needs good people. We are the largest tractor manufacturer in the world. We have, like I already mentioned, good technology pool. And what is this technology pool? It's all about design development of innovative ways. There's a lot of history that's technical patents that are being generated in the automotive industry today here. And unlike the past, we are also spending a lot of time and effort on the aesthetics, how well the car looks, how well the sheet metal is, how well you're embedding technology with the vehicle and looking at comforts that go into the vehicle. So this is from a status perspective, and from a number perspective, this is how it is. I just try to see, since we're talking about manufacturing, I'm looking at these statistics in terms of units, that is numbers. Okay, if you look at it the last 4 years, you can see production, sales, and exports are in the increasing trend. Please, let's not worry too much about 20 and 21. Yes, there was COVID, it threw up its own challenges, but then along with challenges come opportunities. So if you look at exports as a percentage of sales, you could see that the exports, that is vehicles made in India getting exported to countries outside of India. So that means there is definitely a value add, and there are people who are looking at India as a manufacturing hub. So if you look at last year, 92 million automobile vehicles were manufactured across the world, and of that 92 million, 26 million came from India. 18% of what we produced by numbers was exported. We are already known, and much has been written about us as a global manufacturing hub for 2 and 3 wheelers. If you look at the pie chart, 81% of all this 26 million comes from 2 wheeler and 3 wheelers, and we are an emerging global hub for small cars. Now, this is what has happened, and this is where the opportunities are being presented. And what are the challenges? Yes, there's going to be technology, there's going to be supply chain, which I'm going to be briefly talking to you about. There's also the infrastructure that needs to be, that is getting better, but that needs a lot of improvement in the years to come. And then, since we are talking about the local markets getting deep and also international markets, there is logistics. From a global perspective, if you look at it, the beginning of the automotive engine happened in Europe. To be precise, it was in Germany where it all began, the auto cycle, which was the state of the art of technology at that point in time. But again, since I'm talking of manufacture, and manufacture needs standardization, standardization needs numbers. In numbers, the commercialization moved to the United States, which was known as the land of the automobile. And all of us know about Ford and Ford's production line, where the wish was to put an automobile in every house, or 2 automobiles in every house, and which was one particular era. Then from the US, things moved to Japan, where it was all about perfecting processes. It was Kanban, JIT, Toyota Production Systems, and things like that. So it moved to Japan, and of course, later, if you look at the last 10 years, there's been prominence of Korea, China, and perhaps now it's the time of India. So the very, very interesting part of this is the linkage between automobile manufacture and machine tools. If you look at machine tools, Europe is the source for machine tools, and particularly Germany. And still today, if you really look at class automobiles, whether it's Mercedes, whether it's BMW, whether it's Audi, whether it's Volkswagen, in different classes, Europe, specifically Germany or Switzerland or Sweden, still hold Ray. And it is in Europe that you still have a very strong base of manufacturing and machine tools. If you look at US, it moved to General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler. Of course, now Chrysler is sold. But if you look at the machine tool base in the US, you will notice that there's hardly any machine tool base at all available in US. And that's where production moved out of US and it started going out into the other countries. And the invasion of automotives into USA was kind of taken over in the 90s and later by the Japanese, who were able to give much better cars, much better value, or the Europeans from a luxury perspective. And today, American cars are really not the name and fame that they were once. And again, if you see, it shows the linkages of machine tools and vehicles. Japan, as you know, is still strong on machine tools and is still very strong on automotive manufacturing. And Korea, China also have their own base of automotive manufacturing. And as a result of automotive manufacturing, machine tool technology also grew. And you have examples of Hyundai, Kia, people who are into machine tools and who are into cars. So there's an extremely strong linkage. And today, while the competition is between China and India from an automotive perspective, you clearly see that the Mahindras and the Tatas are looking at exports. And from the data that I showed you, whether it's a Bajaj or whether it is the OEs who are manufacturing here, are linking it with the exports and the global markets, and for which a strong machine tool development base and a strong machine tool industry is extremely important, which is a role I think many within the country are playing. So what is the thing that needs to be done now? We really need to look at deepening the value chain in India for this to be competitive. So we need holistic partnering, we need technology, we need a truly connected enterprise, and we need to share cost and outcome based on rewards and recognitions, or based on outcomes, which is slightly different from what we are trying to do today. Today, development happens inside the OEs, components get manufactured in tier 1, tier 2. So this holistic partnering, replacing the vendor approach, and also looking at partnering on technology with transparency and joint R&D. These are some of the challenges that really need to be addressed, and they're all part of the automotive mission from a policy framework that the government is trying to put in together. So these are a couple of the challenges that I'm sure that my fellow panelists will be talking about and taking to you. And from a machine tool perspective, we believe the IoT or the Industry 4.0 is going to be an extremely important part of this, by which the machine manufacturer, the sales and service partner, the ecosystem, the customer and the customer's customer, be it tier 1, tier 2, OEM, whatever that we are trying to look at, is something that we need to develop and build to make the challenge of the Indian automotive sector and to drive automobiles across. This is what I thought I would set the stage for the automotive industry. Thank you very much.